Hello, I'm Cassie Haley for Power Today, and I am here today with Peter Hessler, author of Power Plant Construction Management. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
So I called you author, but you are truly an expert in power plant construction management. Would you give our viewers an overview of just your extensive history in this field?
Well, I've spent about 40 years of my life building and rebuilding power plants all over the globe. And it's an interesting career. As an owner, I've been as a contractor, and today as a consultant. And as part of that consulting process, I attend the Penwell Power Gen conferences. And 15 years ago, I was asked to do a presentation. And subsequent to that, Penwell suggested maybe we could turn this into a book. Hence the first edition of Power Plant Construction Management, a survival guide. And then as time marched on, the power generation industry changed tremendously. It went from all coal to gas. Then the gas bubble burst. It was going back to coal generation. The question of would there be nuclear generation or not? Renewables. So Penwell and I had stayed in touch over the years as the book was being purchased at each of these shows, and suggested that maybe we should consider an update and upgrade to the book. And hence we have the second edition.
And it was an extensive book already, but what can your readers expect in the second edition that they didn't have in the first?
An excellent question, Cassie. The first edition started when you arrived on a construction site and you had to set up your trailers, you had to hire the labor, bring in the cranes, and right through how you managed that process. This edition actually starts before then. It gives you tools to determine whether or not you should even enter into the project. If you're an owner, does it make sense to spend these several $1 billion for a 1,000 megawatt power plant? If you're a contractor, is there enough potential profit in it to go out and contract with an owner to build such a large power plant? Because you're looking at up to 6,000 workers on a job at the peak. That's a lot of people to manage. That's a huge payroll every week. If you slip one time during the week, you can suddenly lose all your margin as a contractor. This book explains a lot of that. It talks about how to make the decisions of whether you should get into the project. And if that decision is yes, then the next thing is how do you manage it? How do you get your arms around 6,000 guys out there that come to work every morning at 7 and maybe have a second shift and a third shift? How do you handle the safety of these guys? There's a lot of things that can go wrong if you don't pay a lot of detailed attention. How do you make sure that you get quality workers? You don't want to be out there and have to do rework. This book addresses all of that. It talks about things like cost of poor quality and why it's so important not to hesitate to hire an extra quality engineer on the job, because the cost of him is peanuts compared to what could go wrong if somebody slips up and you have to rework part of the project. The book continues through with how do you communicate up through the management chains and to the stakeholders. Quite often today, the stakeholders are not the utility themselves. Many utilities or power generators are actually owned by venture capitalists, big money people. And these people, they are not interested in the power, they're interested in making money. And that means get this power plant built quickly, on time, within budget. This book provides the tools to get you started and guide you as you go through that process.
Is there going to be a third edition in the next 10 years? Because technology is just going to keep changing.
Stop. I'm not the young guy I used to be. It is quite a challenge to write a book.
Especially one of this magnitude with all of your expertise. How many countries have you actually managed a construction plant?
15, 20 countries that I've done that in. I've actually lived in, when I started my career, in countries like Indonesia, Saudi Arabia, the Caribbean. In fact, my wife is from the Dominican Republic, where I was building a power plant 40 years ago. Our youngest son was born in Saudi Arabia, where I was building another power plant. So I had the international experience, which, by the way, is not addressed in the second edition very much, but the first edition now has a complete chapter on how to take the tools from what's in the first and second edition and take them overseas. So, it's a matter of, when you write a book, who's the main audience? Today, maybe it's time to think about the Chinas, the Indias of the world who are building large power plants.
Yes.
And so, in fact, I mentioned talked with
lot of
Penwell yesterday about the possibility, how do we get this into the Chinese construction market, the Indian construction market?
Yeah, it's quite an emerging market.
Yes.
So for anyone who does want to pick up this book, where can they get it?
Well, the best place will be penwellbooks.com.
Okay.
Or if you can quickly get to the show, but I guess it's too late for that. But yes, and the other thing that we do is we put on customized training sessions based on this book, whether they're owners or contractors. They may come to go to Penwell Books and somehow find Penwell, or if you have my book, find me on the internet. And we use this book as a training guide.
Well, Peter, thank you for taking the time to come sit down with us.
Cassie, pleasure's all mine.